Have you ever thought how many times you have moved and why? When we bought this house, I thought that my husband and I will live here for the rest of our lives. So, as long as we can survive independently, we would be in this house. But now we are putting it on sale. Have you ever thought how many places you have lived and what those moves or not moving represented to you or have represented to you? I'm pretty surprised to find out that I have been living in quite many places and quite many addresses. Well, of course, I was born to my mother's and father's house, and actually that house they have lived since, I think, 1963, and they still live in there. So my mother has practically lived there, and also my father, yes, for her whole life, for her whole adult life. She was she wasn't even 20 when they moved in that house. So it was basically from her parents' house to that house, and she still lives there. But I don't. But of course, I lived there until I was 19 when I ended the school, and then I moved to another city to study. And the distance was about 1,000 kilometers, so it wasn't just a neighboring town. But that was because of studying. And the apartment was very nice. It was on the upper floors of an apartment building and had very nice views. But it was a rental apartment, and it was clear that I'm not going to live there for the rest of my life. Then my studies were completed, and then I moved to another city, to a bigger city, and I was very happy to move away from there. It was a nice town. Like, I think many people think that it is nice, but it was like very this kind of interned. They have really a really distinct way of talking, and everybody knew when I opened my mouth that I wasn't born there. I was born somewhere totally different. Of course, I have one language and one style to talk that I was born to, but this city has it like very particular. So I felt always outsider, and to be frank, anyone who moves in there from outside is or feels outsider, and they tell the newcomers that they are outsiders even after 10 20 years. I know, because I talk to quite many people in there too. But I have good memories of the place and good memories of the city, but I was glad to move out. And that was the first move that I chose. It wasn't because of a work, it wasn't because of a study, it wasn't because somebody else did the choice. But it was as far from my parents as the previous town, so I was still 1,000 kilometers away. And it's basically the same, like this group of cities that I live in now. So I have then just been moving around here from one part of the town to another part of the town. But that was the first time when I moved in here. And it was also a rental apartment. I was quite young, so I didn't have a means to buy an apartment in a long time. But then I started working, and I lived in that place, I think, for 7 years. Then came like this quite a change. I had a boyfriend that I lived with in there, that I have moved to study in the first place, and then we bought an apartment together, and it was in a much worse area than the one that we have been living in a rental area, in the rental apartment, and we moved in there. But the minute that I carried my boxes in there, I knew that this was a mistake. And I needed to get out of here. So actually I did live there about 3 months until I moved out. And I wanted to move out of there. It wasn't my place, and the relationship was very wrong at that point. So I moved out, and then I moved actually very close to where we had shared the rental apartment for 7 years, and had this very small, like, I don't think it was 30 square meters. So it was this very nice, very small, very like very peaceful apartment. And that was the first time that I lived on my own. And that move represented me independence, and really the first time that I lived on my own, that I was making all decisions, that nobody was telling me what to do, nobody was telling me how to be. It was the first time that I lived on my own. And it was a rental apartment again, and it was very beautiful. It was very special. It was over 100 years old building, with these very, very high ceilings. It was very beautiful. I loved my time there. But of course, I still worked at the same place, so there were many, many things that stayed the same. And I lived there quite many years until I started the new relationship, and then I moved in with him. And that also represented, because I have been living on my own and I have thought that I would never have a relationship again. I was under 30, so in the retrospective to see it now, I would have said to myself that, okay, stop this nonsense. Of course you are going to be married and you are going to be in a relationship and you maybe are going to have children. But during that time, living on my own, I of course matured, and then I thought that yes, I want to have children and I want to have a family, and this is not the style that I want to live for the rest of my life. So the next move, again with the relationship, I moved to my boyfriend at the time, and the whole idea was to start a family life together. And then we shared his rental apartment, which was about 40 square meters. So it was teeny tiny, and my son was born in there. So it represented a start of the family, a start of the new phase in life. That move. And of course, then next move followed, because the apartment was way too small for us. So then we moved to this part of the town, to suburbs, to places where are more suitable for small children. And we lived first in a rental apartment, and then tried to look for a family apartment. And then we found the family apartment and bought it and moved in there. And then my daughter was born. So that represented like bigger family, and it represented this kind of stable life. So I thought that again, that I was going to live there for the rest of my life. But life happens. Relationship wasn't what it's supposed to be. It wasn't what I hoped it would be. It wasn't something that I could repair. And I stayed for many, many years. But then I moved out, children. And it was hard. That move represented quite many things. First of all, it represented again independence for me. And I moved to a rental apartment, to a 1-bedroom and 1 living room apartment. And I felt so happy when I rented it and got my stuff there. I took with me as little as possible, or I took with me only the things that were mine. So I basically moved the things that I had moved from that small teeny tiny apartment from the 100 years ago. I moved those same furniture to that apartment. So in a way, I was in the same kind of situation that in this previous 100 years old building and its apartment. I had ended a relationship. I yearned to be on my own, to be independent, to be free. And the feeling that I was able to breathe when I came in that apartment, it was again in upper floors of a apartment building, and there was like all the light in the world, because there wasn't taller buildings nearby, so all the light from the sky came to the apartment, and I was so happy there. I was so happy. I had been so miserable and I had been so depressed for years that this move was very hard, because I was breaking up a family. I was taking my children. I was doing all the things that you are not supposed to do, but I didn't have a choice if I wanted to keep my sanity. And I had to keep my sanity to be able to be the mother for my children that they need and that they deserve, and to live the life that I believe in. So I had only bad choices, and this was the choice that I made. And I was so happy when I got the apartment and I got my stuff in there, and I was free. I was free again. Well, then we lived in that apartment a number of years, and then I met my husband. And then came the next move, because it was a small apartment and suddenly there was 5 of us. So we needed to move because we didn't want to be apart any more than we have to. So we started to look for a bigger apartment, and we rented a family apartment. That apartment was supposed to be a temporary solution. Of course, we knew that the owner would sell the apartment for us if we wanted to, but we didn't want to. It was in the bottom floor of apartment building, and it was quite dark, but there aren't in this area, because of course my children go to school in this area, so we cannot, or it wouldn't be reasonable to move somewhere else. And then some bad things happen, and that apartment represents me, the bad things that happened in my life. Very dark period. One of my children got seriously ill, and it was during the time that we lived in that apartment, and it was, the whole thing seems to come together to that. And it was dark, and it wasn't nice apartment. It hadn't been renovated like in ages, so it was very smudgy and dirty no matter what you do. And then we started to look for a house to buy, because we didn't want to live there forever and pay rent, because of course I had the money that had been accumulating from these previous apartments. And then we bought this house, and moving here represented like a new start for me, and of course our life together with my husband. And we renovated this house to match our liking in any way, and it represents happiness. We got married in this house, and this has been like a new start for me in my life, a whole new type of relationship, the whole new kind of outlook in life. And I have started here new things, and I have been happy here. Of course, we have this this setting in life that we have certain troubles, and of course the illness that my child had, it's not completely over, but I hope and I think that the worst is over. So there have been many positive things happening in this house, and this is the house that everybody comes together. So for somehow our life just clicked to the right place when we moved to this house, and this represents that to me. But now it's time for us to move on, and both of us feel that we need to sell this house and move on. And it's a feeling that comes from, I think, many small things. Like I said, the financial issues or questions is one, and then we want to simplify. And I hope that the simplifying factor will make our life more easy, and that I hope. And then we be back from the suburbs, from the families with small children, from the very conservative environment to the city, and I be closer to life, closer to what's happening in the world. It will be more easier to go to, let's say, cafes and see people and do stuff like that. And I really think that I need that. I need more life around me. And of course, all things go well, we are able to spend more time in Southern Europe, which would be very nice, and I know how much it would mean for my mental health to be able to do that. But this last move hasn't happened. We haven't sold our house, but this was my story, and the different apartments and houses that I have lived in, and all of them represent some change, some other change than just change of address. How many places have you lived in? Please comment down below. I hope you have a great day. I see you soon. Goodbye.